order my book from Malaprops if you don't have an indie store. But if you've got an independent bookstore in your town, please, please frequent them, even if it's just to get a cup of tea and to pick a magazine up. But the lifeblood for writers like me are independent bookstores, and we need to keep them alive. We need to keep them thriving. So I worked for many years for an independent bookstore, and I love Malaprops because I can walk down there and walk home and feel virtuous in addition to getting all the books that I want. So thank you, Malaprops, and thank you, Stephanie, and thanks to Katie and everybody who's been so helpful. Yesterday, I went in to sign a batch of books. There were about 150 of them, I think. And I was joking that I was doing as much signing as Joe Biden these days. But mine are probably not so important to your general welfare as his are. But you are here tonight in my kitchen, which is where I've been teaching a lot of classes this year, and I've done some rituals from my kitchen. So I invite you in the spirit of hospitality to have a cup of coffee. I've got some over here. The kettle's on if you'd like a cup of tea, and just settle in with me for a little while. I'm going to talk about this book. I'm going to do a crazy